Jukka, thank you for joining me on my newest video series I'm calling Steve is Artificially Intelligent.
Thanks for having me.
You'll be one of the first guests. So let's talk a little bit. I know that you and I agree on many things. However, there are some areas where our opinions kind of diverge, and I would say they're probably mostly in the AI space. I think I consider myself maybe an AI. Let's talk kind of specifically Microsoft AI. I'm more of an AI optimist, and I'd say maybe you're more of an AI pessimist right now. Would that be fair?
It's fair to say that in context of what Microsoft is pushing. So I'm kind of, I do believe that many things will change because of AI, but I'm not sure that they will go the way Microsoft claims them to go right now. So I'm always the skeptic guy who kind of, I like to sort of take in the message from Redmond, but then I'll always keep poking and say, okay, where it's actually fall flat. So what's the reality of working with the tools? So not against kind of the message there, and not saying that it cannot be possible, but kind of arguing that maybe we are not ready yet to like take this into full production use in many of the scenarios that they are promoting today.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is how much of that is where it is today. And, I expect they're continuing to work on it. Obviously, they have, as you said, burned the boats. So they have to have this work. I think that's where I get my confidence right now, is not so much that the tools are great. And frankly, I don't ever expect Microsoft to have the best. They don't need to have the best because they've got the distribution, but it needs to be good. And I think my confidence is coming from the fact that they have gone all in on it. We got a $3.5 trillion company that's got all the money in the world to ultimately make this as good as it can get. How good that is, we don't know yet. So that's kind of been my confidence. And I also think some of it is just survival instinct, right? I mean, I'm curious about your thoughts. Several months ago, Satya did a video somewhere where he said something to the effect that apps will collapse. Mm-hmm. And I, along with a lot of other people, commented, wait a minute, collapse, what does that mean? That doesn't mean they're going away. It means something else. Well, now we've got Charles this week out there saying, no, they're dead. They're gone. Don't spend a nickel on them. Kaput, out. Forget about apps. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what I'm referring to, that it's not the reality today, but of course, the importance of apps as such will go down. I mean, it's obvious they'll be able to have some new ways to interact with technology and tools that are not going to be just about the user interactively working with an app. But then at the same time, I haven't seen an example from Microsoft where they really would demonstrate that, okay, how would the users then operate during the day without apps? So what's going to be like the future state? Well, we heard about Satya making these remarks in some of the interviews that he's consumed by Copilot, so he gets all his emails and podcast summaries and whatever by Copilot. But then, I'd be interested to see if we take away all the apps from Satya today, that would he be happy with just chatting with Copilot? I mean, would that be a realistic UI for someone who could arguably be the kind of perfect example for a role where you can sort of get the results you need without interacting with any specialist apps? He's a CEO. I mean, he has to run the company, and like he's got other people then like doing things with those apps. Yeah. So fair enough, he could probably start from that position. That must be one reason why there's such a big push from some of the CEOs to like replace employees with agents today already. They're seeing that the things they do are in a way replaceable with AI almost today.
Yeah. I agree. Definitely, somebody like Satya is not using apps in his daily, work. Probably hasn't been for a long time. I don't even know that even Charles is anymore at a level where he's actually using apps. So they kind of have that freedom to just, skip over top, play with researcher and these sort of tools and talk about how, well, my day, I don't even need apps. But I also feel, I don't know if it's just me, I find Charles more credible than Satya. Maybe it's the position that Satya is in. He's, CEO. He's got to be out there waving the flag. I also feel like maybe Charles is closer to it. And he's always come off, at least to me in interviews, either with me or other people, as being, pretty straightforward. So when I hear Charles out there saying things like these apps are going to go away, and he's much closer to it, and I mean, he's responsible for them, right? I mean, this all falls under his purview now. And it just feels, what is he trying to, is he trying to force a motion here? Because they're currently not making any money on AI. They are making money on business applications. I can remember James Phillips back when famously telling me after they launched Power Apps for a little while that, make no mistake, Dynamics pays the rent. So there's revenue there. And are they risking scaring off either new customers or even existing customers when they're out there saying the thing that we sold you and that is still growing today and that we still have some people working on is a dead-end street?
Yeah, kind of see a lot of similarities there with how things were back when Power Apps and Power Platform came along, and then sort of Dynamics was covering the bill. But if we look at the potential and kind of the position in the market, then they've been always chasing Salesforce in the CRM space, and they weren't getting any closer there. So in that sense, the strategy of like, let's take this technology and then put it into a different package, let's frame it in another way, and then keep selling it to people who already have Salesforce. Let's not try to get them to like replace their CRM, but build more apps around it, below it, on top of it. I think that was a very logical strategy for Microsoft at that point to like sort of not give away Power Apps for free. Some of it, yeah, but kind of like make it dramatically more affordable than if they were comparing the same features in a Dynamics product. So that kind of was it made a sense in a way of like how they wanted to conquer the market at that point in time. Now, that was, of course, just for a tiny portion. It was for the business apps. And that's like a very small slice of where Microsoft's revenue comes from. And now AI, of course, is something that's going to be affecting the whole pie. So it's stakes are very high here. And in that sense, I guess, Charles hardly could be saying that Satya is wrong. That, don't listen to that guy. I mean, we're still going to be building apps, selling them and all that. So of course he kind of has to be in on it, but then at the same time, I guess this is he probably sees that okay with this, especially with the kind of the reorgs that they're doing around who's in charge of Copilot, then the slice of the pie that Charles is getting, that's also becoming bigger and bigger all the time thanks to this new direction. So in a way, there's only something for him to win there. And if then kind of like if the story doesn't play out and they need to back down a bit from those claims, then there's going to be kind of the good baseline from Dynamics and from the smaller apps and all that to like still hold things together and like sort of have enough sort of like pieces there to kind of build a new puzzle from them if this AI puzzle doesn't really ever become what it's claimed to be.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly didn't say we're going to be turning them off in 6 months. He was kind of vague that they're dead and people are not going to be investing. We're not going to be investing, more into that space. And, I guess one way to look at it is, obviously they want more people using more AI. In that interview, he talked about, the successful companies have everybody in the company using AI at some level, so they're familiar. And that's a motion. It's the old consumption model for Azure or any of these licenses. That was kind of the same motion is if they're seeing people on the sidelines thinking, well, we're just going to wait it out and continue using apps for as long as, until whenever, then maybe one way to spark people into motion is say apps are dead. They're not going to be here much longer, and get people, try to create some urgency to have people start exploring AI, because, you can still see people out on LinkedIn saying, oh no, apps will be here for 20 years. I don't think apps will be here for 20 years. But certainly I think maybe some of that is trying to drive people, motivate them to look now rather than wait later, which makes sense. I'm also curious about your thoughts on, we went through, I think we have close opinions here, but not exact. We went through a Power Apps citizen developer motion where Microsoft decided at the time that, dynamics for the most part required a partner, and partners are expensive, and partners get in the way of our growth because they put this mountain of costs between, the customer and our product. And now we've got this Power Apps thing. Let's go a different angle and just try to convince the customers that they don't need a partner at all. They can do it all themselves, build your own stuff, which made sense. And it seemed to get a lot of traction, but it's customers built a bunch of shit, but just mountains of shit. There were certainly some great apps that came out of that. I think that some of the best scenarios were partners using low-code tools to build powerful solutions, not Sally in HR. She doesn't know what she's doing. But even then, as a user in an organization, you've been using apps. They weren't unfamiliar to you. You didn't build it, but you used it. You understood there's a form, there's a list. I put in stuff. There's workflows back there. So when you got presented as a citizen opportunity to go build apps, at least you had some context, you may not have been able to build anything any good, but at least you knew what the target looked like. It feels now that they're pushing a similar motion with Copilot Studio, that, anybody can go into Copilot Studio and build a wonderful agent. And now we're asking these same people who weren't able to build apps for the damn to go into something of a concept they don't understand at all, may not have even used other than ChatGPT, and say, oh yeah, go build your own. Are you seeing them going down potentially that same path they went to, pushing partners out of the picture because we slow things down in their mind, and really trying to get people to build their own?
I think they're going to try definitely. Yeah, the story kind of fits here. And if we look back at the problems with when the citizens were then building the mountain of shitty apps, then there's even today in Power Apps, there's lots of useful new AI capability that's going to steer them towards a better solution. So more guided experiences there. And I'm kind of optimistic that on the maker side, there's lots to be gained from Gen AI already today, because it's obvious that it doesn't need to be something that works on its own. It's there to support the user, and that kind of AI today can be definitely give lots of value to many different kind of personas. And so then thinking about could they extend that path into, hey, don't build an app, create an agent instead. So by kind of keeping on that route, they're probably not going to close the doors that, hey, you're not allowed to build apps here, making that it a disabled option. But they can, of course, can automate it, say, hey, we also built an agent for you for this UI. Or work with this data that you defined in your plan designer and this policies that you mapped there. So you've got your Dataverse there, the model is there, the processes are here, you can all see it there. But then when it comes to building the user experience on it, they could say, okay, we by the way have this agent here already that knows this stuff. So do you want to use that, or do you want to go on, do a proper app experience around it? Do you want to be a app developer who thinks about all the sort of the boring details that make up a great UX in applications?
Security and compliance and those boring details.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's easy to think of as kind of a journey that, okay, they will then kind of the first way that you experience with your app is going to be, you're going to be guided by these agents that help you build it. and then agent can also be the UI for it. So people may think that, okay, I'm not going to bother building the graphical app UI anymore. And like automation, so the agent's going to say that I can take care of this, or we could build some cloud flows. Well, I'll let you handle it. So that kind of persuasion there probably can get the users to like sort of prefer the creation of agents rather than the familiar tools that they have in other areas of their business today. But still, that does leave the problem there about knowing what a good agent looks like. So for that, I think we're going to need a lot more examples coming from Microsoft. They are, of course, now rolling out those kind of research agents and all these things that sort of do the same stuff as ChatGPT does, but in a business context. But that's not really what the agents are about. Yeah. So I'm thinking that there needs to be a new kind of a, not just like boring templates, but something that really like works as a product, something that does the work for you and like allows you to kind of skip going to the app UI entirely. So if you think about, for example, like a few years ago when Microsoft Viva used to be a thing that they pushed for the employee experience. So I'm going to see that that's probably the first layer of SaaS apps that are going to collapse into just being agents. So having that as a completely agentic UX would probably be the first sort of like broad way to introduce that into as many people as possible. Get people to like do some part of their work with agents, and then they'll know what to ask for, what they should be designing to make it more useful for their own data and processes.
Yeah, I mean, they did go through that in the Power Apps era where they did create a lot of templates. You know, you could start from a template, you didn't have to start from scratch. And you make a good point that we now kind of have the convergence of vibe coding, if you will, which didn't exist, you know, in Power Apps back in the day. It was all, you know, here's maybe a sample, now go read a bunch of documentation, figure out how to do this. And now you've got a natural language box you can start from and say, make it do this, make it do that. And yeah, I know you and I are both down the vibe coding path and seeing some pretty interesting, you know, promising results from that. I can't imagine that's not going to be the way all code is written in you know, at some point. You know, I know right now lots of folks are saying, well, it's not going to, you know, you can't rely on it to be the backbone of your enterprise. Well, I don't think anybody's trying to do that just yet, but you can certainly code an awful lot of stuff that previously would have required a coder. So if we take the idea of a citizen agent builder and combine that with vibe coding on top of the capabilities to help them figure out, you know, how to make it work, maybe there's a path there. Oh.
Yeah, I totally do believe that kind of the it's a bit unfortunate that the citizen version of the apps came to be Canvas apps, because we kind of have the perfect structure there in modern applications to like be a kind of a secure, repeatable user experience environment where things just like are in the same places. You don't have to worry about the UX there. But then we kind of Microsoft kept that behind the premium barrier, and no one ever really got to see that, okay, how fast can it be to like generate a business app that looks boring but works reliably. And now within it's going to be easy to like replace the sort of the Canvas generation with this new vibe coded UXs that would just like be generated the same way as you would do outside Microsoft's own ecosystem, because it's not going to be that much worse. I mean, Canvas apps have been a nightmare in a way for pro devs already trying to figure out what the citizens have done there. And for folks who come from a CRM background who kind of understand the structured nature of data and the beauty of the model, then we don't love the Canvas apps either. So good riddance in a way.
Yeah, I think that it's ironic that model-driven apps, in my mind, are actually easier to build than a Canvas app for a citizen and far more powerful because of the underlying relational database. And it does seem like for citizens, they gave them this toy builder. At least they thought it was a toy builder. And maybe to them and the engineering team, they thought this was simple enough for anybody to use. But I agree. I guess the cost Dataverse must be the challenge. There is the cost of offering Dataverse, but I would have preferred to see them maybe bump the price of M365 a little bit and just include a certain amount of Dataverse and set them down a model path and skip the whole Canvas path. I think they'd end up in a better place and have a better place to have people upgrade from. I mean, if you build a basic model-driven app on a small amount of Dataverse, whatever the minimum is, and saw what it could do, you would probably start wanting to go deeper and buying more stuff, more SKUs. Most of the people that built Canvas were oblivious that model-driven even existed. They thought that, they didn't realize there were two things called the exact same thing. They thought they were building Power Apps, only to realize later, wait a minute, I could have built something on that. So I don't think, I think they did a little bit of disservice to a lot of those folks. What do you think the partner, as a partner, obviously, you consult with folks, you're in this space, I'm in this space, I've built a whole business on apps, which is, obviously making me a little nervous. We're already looking at the next pivot for partners and trying to be ahead of that curve with our digital labor factory and AI first offering, just really focused on whatever AI. I mean, we've taken a particular angle, as you mentioned, because we think it will appeal to the C-suite about, replacing people, but not the C-suite. I don't that it for us not to the C-suite that we can use AI to get rid of you. But certainly, offshore, outsourced offshore stuff that, that kind of work, I think could probably be replaced. But that's our thinking about what, at what point do we kind of drop what we've been doing for decades and focus 100% on that new thing? Or do they live side by side for a while? But I think there's an awful lot of partners that are not thinking that way. They're just kind of head in the sand. We got decades. I'll die before this stuff changes. Just really feeling like they've got all the time in the world. And, technically maybe they've got a place to stand, but customers are asking for this stuff. It's not like customers are not asking. And if you're going to tell a customer who's hopeful that they can, that this AI thing, whatever it is, can make my business more profitable, and your first answer says, no, you got 10 years for this. Well, they're just going to find a partner who says, yes, you're right. So we're going to be that partner who say, yes, you're right, and then figure it out after the fact. But what do you think partners should be doing right now?
Again, if we look at what happened with Power Apps, then a lot of the Dynamics consultancies, of course, they sort of were interested in exploring, could we add a bit of Canvas apps on top of what we're doing already and add as a flavor that sort of expands the kind of suite of what they can offer to customers. But they almost all of them wanted to hold on to the existing business of these line of business applications. And so it was kind of obvious that it wouldn't be attractive enough for those partners to let go of what they already are doing, especially given Microsoft's approach that they didn't really have any proper partner incentives for Power Apps to begin with. So they kind of also eliminated that kind of a model from being lucrative to anyone. So now probably many are going to be again holding to their sort of the baseline offering of what they've always been doing and then add AI on top of it. And that's going to be probably a similar challenge. So I don't know, even if those folks who are more on the modern work side and who, of course, been kind of forced to sell Copilot because their product has been renamed to Copilot now. There's no more M365 without it. So there's lots of people who appear to be believers in this is what you should be using. But I'm thinking that is that going to be then sufficient for really the kind of agent scenarios where we are talking about not improving the productivity of office workers, but rather replacing people who are doing business processes. So I think that that's going to require again, kind of a novel combination of experience and roles and perspectives on how to to do it, because it's not going to be so the kind of old school CRM ERP players, there's plenty of them who are not going to want to touch it. It's going to be too different for them. Then we have the sort of the low coders who are maybe kind of still want to build something that looks like an app, or use tools that they just learned to use a few years ago before Copilot came along. Then we have the modern work folks who are kind of singing the only tune that's available in the Microsoft Store today. So, but who's going to be then like the who's best positioned to really, take advantage of this sort of something that's net new, something that doesn't like replace a previous business. And that's because none of those businesses really are yet, despite of what Satya and Charles and all these guys claim, then the installed base there is pretty huge. I mean, people are going to have these tools around for many years. There's not like an obvious competitor that would come and then kind of replace all that stuff. It's not like, for example, when Apple came along and replaced Nokia smartphones with iPhones. It's not going to be a similar kind of replacement there. So we have OpenAI who's in a position to where people are expecting them to invent something totally new, but then most of the people, these vendors who are fueling the AI infrastructure, they've got their existing business to worry about. Yeah. So I think that we're sort of missing then the really those kind of both maybe on the kind of the tooling side as well as the partner side, who's going to be the one that can really burn their ships, not really care about any of the existing install base, existing ways of working, and go all in on it. That's kind of, I think the real success is going to come from those guys who may not exist yet as a company, and we may not yet see what their services even are, but that's something that you and other folks are then there to give it a go, see if it resonates or not.
Mark Smith, our good friend, had famously said back shortly after Power Platform had launched that Dynamics is dead. It's kind of ironic that through a series of Chinese whispers that ended up getting back to Microsoft that I said it. So, but I quickly defended myself and pointed at him and said, no, he said it. I was kind of wanting to distance myself from that. But since that time, Dynamics is not dead. So I think that there's probably a lot of partners out there that are thinking, well, everybody said Dynamics was dead, and Dynamics is still here, and it's actually, as of right now, still growing. So it's not a shrinking business, not even a stalled business. It's growing faster than it has. I was talking to some Microsoft folks about a significant spike in Salesforce migrations. That's a drum they've been beating forever, and they've had whatever migration level they've had, but for some reason, recently that has spiked. They would like to think it's because their AI story is better. I don't know. What do you think would be causing a spike in Salesforce migrations right as the leader of Dynamics is saying apps are dead?
And if we finally reach a level where people sort of call the bluff of Mark Benioff and figure that it's no longer sensible to pay a premium for the same functionality that you can get for less than half the price from another store. I don't know. It's kind of hard to know whether Salesforce, of course, they are right along on the same wave and trying to make it appear as they are sort of agent first in their offering, but then when you look at what the consultants, the people who are in that ecosystem are saying about the kind of the core capabilities of their tooling, because Salesforce is a collection of tools that bought from somewhere else. It's not like it's been R&D'd inside the same shop like most of the stuff in Redmond has. So the pain probably can be bigger there in that ecosystem about that sort of that pattern not leading into a result where they are kind of ready for the sort of unknown future with AI. because Salesforce has tended to purchase the market leaders or players that were like already established there, and sort of that's how they get into the market. But then, what are they going to do next time? Are they going to buy OpenAI? No. Is there going to be like any AI, like big brands that they could even afford to buy in this valuation? Maybe some, but they are not going to be in this game. They're not going to have any existing like user base or partner networks or anything ready. So to me, it kind of seems that maybe people see that, okay, everything has been now bought and put into the same basket and it's all we got, but it still has those, the seams are so obvious that it's not going to get like any better in the future. Maybe they've kind of had enough. They waited for a while, and then there's been a time again to like renew the contracts, and now with all the sort of market uncertainty has then pushed people to like sort of let that boat burn and sink, and let's try to jump on another boat.
I follow a lot of Salesforce consultants as well, and they're having the same kind of complaints that the stuff just doesn't work. It's not living up to promise. And I guess one thought could be that Salesforce at its core is a CRM solution with some other capabilities, but it's primarily this CRM solution, which is one component of a business. I mean, it's not an insignificant component; it's an important component of a lot of businesses, but it's one component. And Microsoft, of course, this has always been the story we've talked about. Dynamics is it's part of a stack of components that go across everything. So that hasn't been enough to move the needle significantly in the past. But maybe we're seeing some folks out there that are saying, whether it works or not today, AI is clearly where this is going. And, maybe now's the time. I mean, AI should operate across our whole business, not just siloed inside our CRM system. And then what are we using over here? They're probably using Microsoft anyway for M365 and everything else. So they're already getting Copilot stuff down here. And maybe it just makes sense to, drop Salesforce and maybe that's part of the thought process. I don't know. But, that's the only thing that kind of makes sense to me is that they're believing that AI is coming one way or another, whether they like it or not, and who's kind of best positioned for AI across the organization, as opposed to, maybe Salesforce at the end of the day will have vastly superior AI in CRM, but is that enough to overcome good enough AI across your whole organization? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's if kind of the side of thinking of being just about CRM. Of course, that's not kind of the maybe reality, but they, with tools like Slack and all, they haven't really been able to demonstrate that the sort of the sum being greater than the individual parts that are put into it. So yeah, but we never know. I mean, it might be so that there's going to be movement in the market and like maybe some of the inflated expectations around AI are going to be then causing a bit of a downturn. Who knows? And Salesforce can rebound and again reinvent themselves, because that's what they do every year. They come up with a new term and just push it out there. And sort of, I feel that in a way Microsoft is now following the playbook of Salesforce in many of the way how they roll things out, how they talk about these Copilot capabilities. It's I kind of not big fan of that, making that kind of promises, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they for the most part, they stopped short though of calling out competitors or ridiculing competitors or the whole Clippy stuff. I mean, that's a Benioff trademark, right? Just go after, confuse them with some hand motion and stuff like that. But they haven't really bit on that. Microsoft doesn't come, and you have to assume Microsoft knows Salesforce better than we do now. Just competitive intelligence. They know the weaknesses of that product, but they just kind of, they talk about their strength, whether real or not, but we talk about their strengths more than they try and push against Salesforce, where Benioff's program seems really to try and point out flaws in other folks. It doesn't that never rings well in any conversation, in any kind of a sales scenario. And, with us selling services, the way to land the customer is not to talk bad about your competitors. That doesn't usually get you the deal at the end of the day. It gets you kind of kicked out of the room, but he's got a big enough microphone.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he could do it.
And he's still kind of a smaller kid there on a playground compared to them like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, which are kind of like then the trifecta of those, the guys who actually have like in-house labs to really come up with something massively new. So, yeah, if Satya or Charles would lower themselves to the level of many of them, that would be a bad sign.
Yeah, I agree. Do you worry at all about, obviously I think there's a huge number of AI startups out there. Some are exploding into billion-dollar companies and then going poof, into vapor, which is not unexpected, right? When you get something that is this, big and this loud, and everybody wants to get on, try and make some bucks while they can. But nobody seems to be, I think there's some people making money in the layer above AI, but none of the frontier model, OpenAI, Anthropic, these folks aren't making any money. They're losing massive amounts of money. Yet, OpenAI recently got like another $40 billion, which is more than all the other AI companies combined. All this money going into something that isn't making any money, doesn't even look like it will anytime soon. I mean, are they going to end up having to, Microsoft and others obviously have built, I think Satya ended up being very smart, not trying to create a frontier model, but throwing a few $1 billion at another one because the money's going to be made in the layer above that. But you're building on top of almost like what's a public utility that's running out of resources, running out of gas. So what happens? At some point, they can't just keep throwing money into OpenAI, Anthropic, and they're not making any money. You're talking about they're throwing money in because they think they're going to get a big return. It kind of reminds me of the Vegas betting style, where if you lose, you double down, and you just keep doubling down so that when you eventually win, you end up making all your money back. But double down usually doesn't work. You just end up losing more money until somebody says, okay, I've had enough. No more money goes into that. What does Microsoft do or anybody else do? And when or if all these frontier model companies just can't sustain any longer, what happens?
Yeah, that's a good question, because if you look at, for example, now where does the AI revenue for Microsoft come from, then the biggest, over half of it is from OpenAI's consumption of Azure resources. So the kind of, well, who knows, how they are dividing different profits from Copilots on the Motorwork side and all that, but still kind of there's no revenue streams discovered yet in AI that will make any of these sustainable or even sensible. So the question of like, what happens if a year from now OpenAI cannot get funding anymore? So because their projections about they should be making billions of dollars on agents which they don't have yet during this year, and we can all see that it's bullshit. That's asking their own AI to hallucinate these charts about their growth, and like it's all seems to be based on the belief that there will be HEI soon enough, and that it will then be the ultimate game changer. But I kind of don't see that as it's not a business model; it's a religion. They're kind of like attracting followers to like join in on the cult and like get ready for the sort of the day of the arrival of AGI, hoping that so they make it until a moment where there's something that will sort of kind of do away with all their previous claims and like this small problems about finding a right price point for what kind of a monthly fee could they ask from their users. So I don't know. That's we've seen things in the crypto markets and all those where this kind of phenomenon usually doesn't have a happy ending. Is it going to have a different ending this time? Well, I think there's a lot more to it. I mean, it makes more sense. There's like more use cases for the technology, but I don't personally believe that the LMs as they are today, that they will be the path through which we discover the kind of AGI level capabilities. There needs to be something else alongside that happening, and maybe it's going to happen like within a year or 10 years. And that's the big gamble there. So if they run out of money before there's another invention that will sort of solve many of the reliability and security issues, which are really like the blockers for enterprise to really like go from POC to actually production use with all this stuff. I mean, everybody is experimenting, but how many of these agents are in production use today? Well, they are not, because enterprises have their own risk management policies that they cannot just like forget about just because OpenAI told them it's all right. Yeah. So we're kind of waiting on a miracle to happen. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe it will, but I wouldn't bet on it.
I was quick a couple of years ago to say that this path does not get to AGI, in my opinion. As soon as I understood kind of the core mechanics of, next best word predictor, right off the bat, and everything we're looking at has kind of been built on that. I mean, it's had all sorts of stuff bolted onto it every direction to try and manage hallucinations or get more out of it. But as soon as I heard that at the beginning, I said, well, that's never going to reach AGI. You reached a fork. Maybe you didn't even see it, but you took this fork, and now you're too deep into this fork to retrench. And you're reaching everywhere off this tree, trying to find AGI, but you're on the wrong branch completely. It's not there at all. But they can't say that, because that's how they get the $40 billion investment, is by saying, we're so close. We're so close to AGI. And they've got to be completely full of shit and know it. They have to know that they're not close. They're not even on the same, they may not even be on the right tree, much less the right branch. If that exists at all, and I don't think it does, if that exists at all, it's definitely nowhere in the playground that they're playing in right now. But that's what drives the revenue. At some point, you got to think that people are going to get wise, that, this thing is getting incrementally better, not significantly better over time. If they had dropped the whole quest for AI, they might have been better off, because then all the energy could have been spent on, okay, let's figure out the ways to manage what this thing can do. Some of the hallucinations that have been kind of consistent. They've been able to do a lot. Microsoft as well has been able to do a lot to kind of contain that, but not eliminate that. They've been able to contain that. So that's the thing that has me still a little nervous about if they could contain that somehow. I'm not even sure that that's even possible. But if they could contain that to a point to where it was at least no worse than humans, hallucinating, because obviously humans say wrong shit all the time. Business hasn't collapsed as a result, or maybe some have, but generally, businesses are made of a bunch of humans that aren't perfect either. But if they could reach a similar level, then you've got something. But to me, in certain areas of business, it's close enough. It kind of depends on what it is, right? And where it is. Maybe combining some non-deterministic with deterministic, kind of has a way to play there also. There's no reason to use the non-deterministic model when, you've got an accurate thing that you can use up to a point and then use it, no, might as well. But what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so that really is a sort of big question that people haven't needed to confront that reality yet, about why do things in the non-deterministic way when there's probably good automation there to also do it in a way that meets the criteria. So that's kind of the reason why I see that the potential for LM really is today in helping the makers, help people figure out the right sort of setup on how to build the automations, how to configure them, but not let AI be on the driver's seat, like decide on that this is going to be the way to do it. So I know that there was research projects on that at Microsoft and other places where they are looking to like leverage LLM as the orchestrator for things, but I'm kind of I think we should first see these the capabilities of LLMs be like used in a narrow enough space and ensure that that we don't get more damage than we get benefit from it, and then build up from there. Try to jump into a place where LLM is kind of like controlling other agents. It's sort of like that's already kind of escaping beyond the horizon where we can like observe what really is going on. Then it again becomes kind of a leap of faith. It becomes more religion and less about scientific way of like or engineering way of building things that you can prove that they work and you kind of know what to expect. So, but unfortunately, because of the AGI quest and the big money is involved, then we're kind of like not given the enough time to like build it in a sensible way. We're sort of like being a citizen who starts like building and replicating SAP right away, not building first a crappy canvas app, but jumping right into the deep end with these things. And I don't think that's, looking back at how technology has been adopted with consumers and businesses, it's never like that. I mean, it's gradual baby steps, and like it may well take like 5 or 10 years for these things today that's like, let's say, published this year in Build to be like really mainstream, something that everybody's using in the business, and that would be perfectly fine. I mean, if only we could like forget about the AGI dreams and like focus on making things mature in a gradual way, then I would be a lot more supportive for those initiatives. As long as we are sort of like making claims that everything that LLMs claim they can do, then I'm saying call it bullshit. We're kind of falling into the trap of like believing that the machines that are only like built to be as convincing as possible. We're reflecting on that in a way that, and it might be a part of the human psyche, that we cannot really like separate those things. So, because the machines now, they talk like us. So it's totally different from the machines that talk with codes and graphical UIs and all that. We see too much of ourselves in that, and we can't then be sort of objective about the decision on what to apply where and when.
Yeah, I mean, even when you talk to another person, you kind of judge their intelligence by things that they're saying and how they're saying it, but you're talking and you come away thinking that person's smart. They know a lot about this thing. Whether they do or not, they could just be a master bullshitter. I bait it all up, but they sounded like, they convinced you. And AI does that as well. I found it's interesting that whenever I am using ChatGPT, because I think like you, I've got that open on the desk all day. I'm doing my work stuff, but I've always got that open. I'm not vibe coding with that. I'm vibe coding with some other tools, but I'm using it as another place to bounce ideas off of. And maybe coding is just a very ripe space because it's not, it's ones and zeros, right? I mean, it's syntax. It seems very well suited to what AI can do. But you jump into something like a researcher and have it, go explore some topic that you don't know about, and it will come back with a bunch of really good information, amazing information. Of course, if you ask it about a topic you know very well, for some reason, it comes back with a bunch of horse shit. So, isn't that interesting?
How strange.
Yeah. So it does make you wonder about the stuff that and frankly, that's what most people are probably asking these tools or things they don't know. Why would I ask it about something I already know? What's the purpose? I ask, well, the purpose is you'll kind of get a sense of, where it is on the scale of something you can count on if you ask it some things But I think from a coding standpoint, I do worry about, and I know that's a pretty, I would say almost rabid bunch of folks out there, but I would be as well. I mean, AI is probably targeting me as well, but I'm ignorant enough to not see it coming. but the development community, the web development in particular, I mean, they it's right on top of them. I mean, it's starting to step on their neck. They can feel it. They're scared, so they're kind of reacting in a way that you would expect. But where do you think that goes? We got a lot of folks out there. You know, I think when they first talked about AI, the first thought was, well, people with no skill, no talent, you know, just button pushers, you know, they're all going to be eliminated. And I think that's absolutely true. But it's, you know, going after some pretty smart people. Where does that stop? You even alluded to potentially the CEO, which I don't disagree with either.
That is indeed a tricky position right now, because again, sort of people who are outside of that community, people who don't write code, to us it seems that okay, this thing writes code probably in a 100 times faster than the humans do. And we kind of fallen into the trap of like imagining that it's that's all there is to it. And in reality, of course, like the best code is the code that you didn't write at all. So like minimizing things, not generating new stuff, but really like thinking through things, and like then like as the last step, then writing a few lines. That's kind of like what development really is about, software development in the end. But we are kind of stupid enough that we just assume that it's all about those kind of text completion agents that seem to be very fluent inside Visual Studio and GitHub and all those places. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a call for the human developers really to then like separate their work from, to kind of validate that their output is not the same as the output from Gen AI. And we have maybe sort of forced them to be too deep only in the coding domain in projects and in organizations, so that we didn't like have a sort of a mental model about what they really do. So we should then maybe allow them to like write less code and demonstrate their value then through other means. I don't really know exactly how that would happen, but I kind of I realized that, especially when I'm doing my vibe coding experiments, usually just for my own entertainment, and it's obvious that I mean, I can like I gain from more respect for those people who get more for real how to use those tools and like spot the things there when I'm watching the AI do its coding magic there, and like being totally unable to like argue with it. So I'm missing the person who could actually like push back and say that that is bullshit. Stop doing that. And like, here are the better instructions. Are like, write that boilerplate code for me, and like, but then do it exactly like this. So that planning isn't really. Of course, we have like these tools today. Sort of the kind of thinking part that they pretend to do, reflecting on what they wrote. But it's again, it's fake. It doesn't really do it in the way that it appears to us. So we are only kind of like leaning ourselves towards deeper in the rabbit hole of like believing that it does the thing which it doesn't do.
Yeah, I think that I think there's going to be a future role of professional vibe coder. You know, I've been experimenting like you as well, and over time, you learn you kind of learn some patterns that it's doing, and you can start avoiding some of those if you just let it go. I mean, you can check the box to have it auto proceed, and it will just start building based on whatever you told it to do, and it's rattling off hundreds of files, and it's building all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's going by so fast you have no idea what it's building, but you get a sense that probably half of it is probably not necessary. But then poof, you pop up and it's produced a working thing that functions, no doubt full of a bunch of stuff that isn't needed, but
full of bugs and security holes and like all the boring stuff.
Yeah, potentially security hole. Well, and when you're talking about a marketing website, who cares, right? But what's the worst that can happen with a marketing website? But you're talking about, coding, something to be used inside an organization. I don't think it's there yet, but you can kind of see that, potentially it could be getting there. I think the tools are getting better, but the users of the tools are also getting better. I mean, I definitely, there's a bunch of folks I see out on LinkedIn that have gone kind of down that rabbit hole. I've gone down that rabbit hole. Sounds like you're down that rabbit hole as well, playing around with that vibe coding, because it's just too much fun. I mean, for me, as CEO of a company that builds technology but doesn't code, it's always been a frustration for me, right? I mean, we've got these rapid start apps which you've had for years, and I'll be, wanting to build a custom control, PCF control or something. I don't have the technical ability to do it, so I'm dependent on pulling people off a team of a paying customer, which they're loath to do, I'm loath to do, or contract out to somebody who, which I've done in the past also, and I describe what I want, and they come back with something that isn't. Then you kind of end up having a compromise. And now, for me, it's just been so freeing to say, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just going to go start playing around with it, see where I end up, and have solved some of my own problems. So for me, it's been freedom, really a freedom of the tyranny of developers being at their mercy. Now I can solve my own problem. Is it perfect? No. Does it need to be perfect? Again, to your point about security, compliance, you need to make sure those things are addressed. But if there's some extra plumbing under the hood that's probably not even being used at the end of the day, because you'll notice as you give it modification instructions, it changes directions sometime and builds something new. It just leaves the old, plumbing there. It's still in the walls. It's not, water's running through it anymore, but it's still in the walls. So how important is it that it go back and rip that out? And even it can do that. I mean, at the end of a session of doing some stuff, you say, okay, now go through this entire code base and tell me what's not being used anymore. And it can do a pretty good job of ripping out against a lot of the obvious pipes. But I have no doubt professional coder looking at the output code would just be rolling over his chair laughing. But I'm thinking, it works. It does what I wanted it to do. It's functioning. The output at the front is the same that you would have produced. Maybe under the hood, the wires are a little messy, but it's working. So that would be, I don't know.
Must be the same feeling that people who create their own shitty Canvas apps feel about big CRMs that we've been building for them, and then they come around and build their own terrible app, and it's everything they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because they didn't have to work with their partner, their developer team, and go through a bunch of rounds of, no, that's not what I mean. They got a picture in their head. So
yeah, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what all the other stuff they would have needed until they then run into it. And that's the story of the web coders as well.
Yep. No, I agree. Well, this has been fun, Jukka, as I knew it would be. I knew you would have some great opinions to share on this. Let's talk briefly about Porter Roz. You and I were both there. We had a fun session for Bald Guides Talking Shit. You were the added fourth Bald Guide this year to that session. That was a lot of fun. But that event in general, it's just my favorite. I mean, I think like you, I'm not flying around to a bunch of events anymore. With not being MVP, there's that compulsion is no longer part of it. Now, me living in Brazil, I mean, frankly, flying places is kind of a pain in the ass. So I go to Microsoft twice a year for PAC, and Porter Roz, that's my itinerary. That's kind of what I'm trying to focus on. But what are your thoughts on the event and just traveling around in general?
I do agree that it's a very unique event, and I enjoy the fact that it was so community-led in a practical way. So there's out of the 1,000 attendees, every fourth of them was also a speaker. And so the difference between people who are on the stage and who are then in the audience, that disappears. So it's not about seeing great big keynote demos about fancy upcoming AR stuff from Microsoft, but it's about the real things. So the barrier there between what's shown and what's real, and then how you can then go to talk with the people, that can disappear. So it really is, that makes it worthwhile to really then be there in person. So, I mean, you can see all the fancy demos in the online broadcast today. You don't have to like actually be there, and I cannot not even want to be there. I'm not sure the atmosphere would be like worth it, because I don't need to be drinking anyone's Kool-Aid. I'd rather be there talking with people who also are not afraid to like tell their opinions and share things that are working and not working, being honest about it. That's what kind of the human interaction really is all about. And many people are not like me, who will be saying everything online. They may be reserving that for the kind of personal discussions that they will then maybe sort of admit that what's their true opinion about things. And that's fine. I mean, we need that kind of safe space for that kind of discussion to happen. And I think Portoro's Times Mice totally did a great job with that. So yeah, those are the kind of events that I feel are worth attending. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, same as you, I'm no longer worried about gathering community activities and like thinking about, have I been presenting to how many people in how often during the year? Who cares about that? I mean, it's all about like the personal KPIs. What can I give and what I get out of it, and who cares about the rest?
Well, you care about it if you're trying to become an MVP, and there's certainly many people out there. And I actually, I mean, I don't have anything against the program at all. I think it was a great experience, a great program. If someone has opportunity to get engaged, they should absolutely do it. It definitely is worth it. But for me, it had kind of reached a point where I felt like, okay, I've squeezed this sponge for most of the water that it has for me. And back when it was full of water, I was willing to do the work. But once I'd squeezed most of it out, it just seemed like a lot of work for a little water. So yeah, at the time timing was good. But I would say probably a good turn would be about 5 years. I think after about 5 years, you've roughly gotten 90% of the value of being an MVP in the marketplace, in relationships with Microsoft, and after that, we kind of relax. But yeah, even though they threw me out of the program, I don't I don't blame them for that either. I don't think I ever was quite the right persona for MVP anyway. Not when I see the MVPs that are in there that are definitely, rah everything, which I understand. But yeah, good program, I think, and I'd say anybody who's interested in pursuing, they should definitely check out our buddy Mark Smith's 90-Day Measuring Challenge. He's had a ton of people go through that program. Everybody says it's awesome. I have not gone through it because I feel like I already know all that maybe. But
there's no hope for you anymore.
Yeah, no hope for it anymore. But that program has minted a ton of MVPs. So he definitely is, getting people on that right path. So I highly recommend Mark's program. What is it that you're doing that, people might be interested in engaging with you on today?
Well, you could, of course, always go and look at my newsletter. Perspectives.plus is the domain for it. So that's where I now publish on a weekly basis my writings. So after being a blogger for like 15 years or so, I decided to, a year ago, then start with a different kind of format. And I've been enjoying the opportunity of like kind of regaining the joy of writing and having a bit of a new angle to it. And I'm also working with different kinds of partners. I'm about to trying to launch a PowerApps-based SaaS application this soon as well. So I'll be sharing that on social media and hope that people are going to come and at least try a free trial version of that. So trying to see that new avenues for how to sort of squeeze value out of this platform.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Jukka, it was great catching up with you. I look forward to doing it again very soon.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.